Reports, a study in contrast.
One, two, three, four. U.S. embargoes Russia and grain prices dive. Lose 20 cents a bushel of grain on hand. So in other words, I've got...
These people are playing a game that represents their daily lives. They're having fun now because it's only a game. Welcome to Life Force. I'm Verda Williams. This program, Iowa Agriculture, a study in contrast, deals with the farming experiences of 3 Iowa families. Wayne Hagedorn and his wife Christine live on this farm in Fredericksburg. Their farming situation is unusual in that Wayne works full-time as an industrial engineer while Christine operates the farm. Could you tell us a little bit about your operation here?
Well, it's a livestock and grain operation. We raise about 1,600 head of hogs a year. Plus there's 200 tillable acres, roughly about 15 acres or so of oats, mainly for bedding for the hogs, and the rest is corn.
Okay, and I know, Christine, you have a family as well.
Right, we have twin daughters that are age 7, and they're presently 2nd graders here in the Fredericksburg Community School District. So they keep us busy too.
Now the unique thing is that with all this, the 200 acres and all those hogs, Wayne, you work for John Deere.
My wife runs the farm.
And your wife does. Oh, yeah. You put in a full day's work at John
Yes.
Deere? What's your shift?
Normal time 7 to 3:30. About the last 10, 12 weeks we've been working 60 hours a week. I'm an industrial engineer there.
Are you able to apply any of the techniques or the machinery you might work on at John Deere here on the farm?
Well, being an industrial engineer, that's working with, time-saving elements and stuff. So, of course, your mind thinks in that respect. I mean, anything that I can do, or Chris and I can do to figure out labor savings. You'll probably notice that we're pretty heavily capital intensive here, which is, to reduce labor.
Is it necessary for you to work at John Deere, or are you just doing it for the fun of it?
I don't do it for the fun of it. The original goal was that after we bought the farm, which was 1969, we moved on in 70, was that 5 to 10 years at the most, we'd be fully employed farming. Well, things don't always quite work out the way you plan. And we spend an awful lot of money here, and a good share of it's borrowed, so I can't justify it in that respect. Also, I use the analogy that you're about like an indentured servant when you start working at Deere's. You're free when you start there, and the longer you work there, the more indentured you become, because with the pension plans and you start working up in salary schedules and things like that, it's very difficult to quit, really. And that's not just John Deere's. I would assume that's any place.
Now you bought the farm 11 years ago. This can't have been your first experience with farming, with what I saw you doing out in the field today.
Oh yes, but I was raised on a farm, Wayne was raised on a farm. We both, have farm backgrounds. We both graduated from UNI. I taught school for 8 years. I have a master's degree in biology from UNI, and so we were away from it for a while, and I guess, kind of wanted to get back to it, and so that's how we got back here, and I guess we've grown into it.
Christine, do you see any other advantages or disadvantages to this particular situation?
Well, I guess security is probably, one of the biggest things. hopefully, his job is, fairly well secure there. It produces more stress and more pressure on us here because, spring and fall especially, when it's time to get the crops in and harvest time, and like I said, if things break down and, he's not here sometimes, or if I can't handle it myself, it's just sets. Or also, I guess, another way of looking at this, we probably pay more for service calls or for help, in repairs that, many other people wouldn't, because if he's not here to fix it and I can't do it alone, why, we have a service call.
How about the American people? Do you think we are as responsive to the needs of American farmers as we could be? Do you think we're supportive? We all run on food. There's just no way you can get through a day without eating some food. Do you think that we could be a little more helpful?
I don't know how you be about being more helpful. Buy more pork. But I think it's more an awareness type problem. I think, and maybe this comes back to the farmer, that we need to get out and show them and tell them what we're doing. But I think you get out of the Midwest or even get into some of the cities, they have no idea as to what we go through to raise our livestock or to raise our grain. And I don't think they have any idea as to the kind of costs that are involved in that.
Well, take me, for instance. Now, if I buy a pork chop, and good Iowa pork chops are what, $2.19, $2.20 a pound, I figure you're getting about 80% of that money. Am I wrong?
You're wrong. No, hogs today are selling for 41, 42 cents a pound. We figure our costs, of course, again, you have to take a look at our situation with the buildings that we got, and the interest, of course, is a killing factor today. But we have to have 51, 52 cents a pound to break even. And here they are selling for 41, 42. And, so it's a money-losing deal right now for us.
Are there any governmental programs that are advantageous for you, or?
As far as their tax policies that they passed earlier, I think they're detrimental to farming. I'm very anti to them, and I even voted for the administration. I hate to say, but I think they're foolish on. It was all right to maybe cut back on some of the budget, but these tax programs, all they're going to do is have a landed aristocrat, just like they had in Europe 200 years ago. That's why the Europeans left there, and now we're going to end up with the same thing if we aren't careful. I'm very anti to it. Fast write-offs and things like that, that is never going to help a young farmer. All that's going to help is either a very wealthy farmer or a very wealthy outside investor, as far as I'm concerned. The Reagan administration is going to give you a little bit of kickback in tax reduction. Gee whiz, if they get this interest rate down 5-6%, they'll help the farmer more than they'll help anything, and they'll make John Deere's run, and they'll make everything else run if they get this interest down. The interest is killing this whole economy, as far as I'm concerned.
Mary Ann and Dennis Kiewit farm in the Grundy Center area. They also farm jointly with sons Mark and Steve.
We primarily farm this farm and several others, totaling 480 acres. Then we farm sort of jointly with our sons. One son, Mark, lives where we used to live, and the other son, Steve, lives at Traer. And we have a dairy herd over there, and a dairy farm that we purchased about 7 years ago.
How does your wife fit into the operation? Does she help with the harvesting?
Before the boys got older, she did a lot of work. She did a lot of field work, and she helped put the crops in and also get them back out of the field. But right now, she's more or less keeps the house going and cooks and cleans and so forth. But once in a while, when we get to filling cribs and so forth, she comes out and helps. And it seems like you need about 4 people when you fill a corn crib with your corn, and they always come in handy then.
This, I guess you'd classify sort of a mid-sized farm. There are farmers nowadays who are taking part-time jobs because they can't support this type of operation. Do you suppose there's much future in running an operation your size?
Well, I seem to think so. I really don't think a person has to get any bigger. I think we're making a fairly good living. We don't drive new cars or new pickups or anything like that, but we get by. I seem to get by with machinery that other farmers have traded off, and doing most of our own repair work. It does help considerable because your depreciation on new equipment is so great the first year that if you can manage to fix up some of the older equipment just a little bit, it helps a lot, you know.
What's the biggest risk you take?
Well, I've always said farmer was one of the biggest gamblers around. Some people go to Las Vegas and plow a lot of money into that gambling operation. Well, I think a farmer is primarily the same way. We plow a lot of money into the soil every spring and hope and pray we get a good crop. The economics of the whole thing is getting more difficult all the time. You practically have to be an economist to be a farmer anymore. If you don't get your grain sold right or chemicals put on right, it's either make or break, I think.
Life Force continues with the Kiewit family after this.
Every gambler knows that the secret to surviving is knowing what to throw away, knowing what to keep.
Disaster. She got smart, probably.
Disaster card.
There you go.
Oh, I don't even want to know. Hailstorm pulverizes your crops. Use hail insurance card or lose $100
an acre. You don't have a hail insurance card.
How do you get one of them?
You have to draw.
Oh, you land on one?
You land on a disaster card, you get that card.
$100.
This is a horrible time to interrupt the game, Bud.
$10,000.
Is this game anything like your real farming experience?
Well, I think so.
You never know what's going on next.
You're right. It's sort of a surprise factor that
When you roll the dice, that's
Yeah.
what decides it all. So I
Yes.
guess it's just a big gamble is what they're trying to say.
Now, you rent some. Mark, you rent, don't you? Is there any security in that for you? Do you think you might get squeezed out and get left out in the cold, or?
I could very well, but the landlord seems like he likes me a lot, and he don't like the bigger farmers, so I think I got a better chance at that.
But those landlords are definitely in a minority. Most of them will.
yes.
Most
They're out to
people-
grab the biggest buck, and you can't blame them. You know?
Whether you've known them for years or
Somebody's
not.
gonna-
With the proposed legislation, the new farm bill, does that look any good to you? Or?
It's about the same as always been. It's just a bunch of red tape and nothing ever gets done. They're trying, but they're not trying hard enough.
Well, I think part of the problem there, though, is because farming is such a diversified program. It's,
We're not a big voting block.
and what's good for one isn't necessarily good for another, where in manufacturers or...
Well, there's not a politician in the whole country that needs the farmer vote to get in. And that's really a crying shame.
I think we're down to less than 4% of the population right now, so I feel we're pretty grateful in having the legislatures that we have from this farming area. I think they're doing all they can for us.
Well, each farmer now is feeding over 50 people.
Yes.
And it's getting more and more every year because every year the family farms are disintegrating, the big ones are taking over. Each farmer now farms probably, 5-6 times the amount of land he did 20 years ago. And you have to now to make it. So,
But that's one of the reasons why I think they're really interested in getting a good farm program, though, because, or keep working at it anyway, because if the farmer doesn't survive, well then, I don't think there's much hope for
anything else.
anything else.
We're buying the tractors, and we're buying the, we've got to eat too, of course, but like take Waterloo, for instance, with the John Deere dealership, they're actually catering to us. If we don't have a good year, they're not selling as many tractors. So it bottoms down to us, really, I think.
I think the future in farming different countries are coming with needs for our grain. I think it was yesterday I heard China was going to buy a lot of our corn, and which I think will help. We need to find more needs for this product that we're producing. Gasohol, I think, helps some, but I'm just a farmer. I'm not a chemist, but I think there's a good outlook in farming. This might be a year that things are a little tighter and so forth, but I think it'll straighten out in the long run.
Harlan Murley helps farm about 1,700 acres in the Aurora area. He's formed a corporation that includes his wife Karen, son Larry, brother-in-law Doug Reed, and former hand David Peck. Their corporation produces corn and soybeans, and they raise about 2,500 hogs.
We began the corporation in the first place to make it so that some deserving persons could not only work here but become involved in the ownership of the business if they wanted to. At that time, Dave had been working here for a couple of years or so, and so that's primarily the reason that we formed the corporation. There were probably a couple other side benefits to it. And then within a couple of years, Doug also became involved in the corporation. And then a few years later, our son Larry also has become involved in the corporation. So we all share in the ownership of the business to some extent.
How did you get started farming?
Well, I started farming with my dad in a partnership about the time I got out of service. And we farmed that way together for a number of years up until he retired in 1974. And in anticipation of that retirement, Dave had begun here in 1973, so we had a slight overlap to provide continuity, and we've gone on from there.
Karen?
Well, let's see, when I grew up, my dad and grandpa were in the farm implement business, so farming wasn't foreign to me, but I guess when we were married, that's when I began farming.
Back in 1959, my family moved to a farming operation, and which Karen, I believe, had already graduated by that time, and we farmed until the time that I left high school, entered college. And from that period of time to 1976, I wasn't involved in farming, but have since that time.
David?
I grew up on a farm not too far from here, and went to college for a couple of years, and then started working with Harlan. Been working here ever since, I guess.
Have you ever thought about anything else other than farming?
I went to college to be a chemical engineer, and I worked at Ames Lab one summer, and worked all during the school year, worked part-time down there, and decided that wasn't quite what I wanted to do, and so then I came back and started farming, I guess.
Karen, you seem to be getting more and more involved in farming. You've got your broker's license, is that correct?
Well, I've taken the test that I could have a broker's license if I were employed by a brokerage house, but I guess I'm fully employed here, so I'll try to use that knowledge with the marketing of the grain here.
Tell us about your full employment here on the farm. We've seen you at the desk using computers, and there's a very active business band phone system going. It's not a phone, but it's going on. Can you explain some of your chores around here?
Well, let's see. Primarily, I guess, would be at the desk with the bookkeeping and the secretarial work that is involved there, and the grain marketing, which I have help with from Harlan. And,
Not much.
You know, watching you guys work during harvesting time was like watching a finely tuned Swiss clock, just synchronized and everything. Can you describe that operation for us, please?
We try to size our machinery and so that it pretty much is a flowing operation. So we don't have a lot of wasted time. You know, if we had a lot larger combine, it'd be sitting in the field, or if we had a lot larger grain unloading facility, it would be sitting idle. So we try to get by with the machinery that's about matched.
The capacity of the combine seems to be that a load was coming through about every 12 minutes, and that's about the limit of our capacity to unload right now, so we're running kind of even there. If you trip and fall somewhere along the way, well, you're going to hold the whole operation up.
Dave, we saw you out in the shop working away on the machinery. Is this how you take care of most repairs?
Once in a while we have to go to town to get something repaired, but anything major we have done at local implement dealers or whoever works on it. But if it isn't too bad, we try to tear into it ourselves, I guess.
Doug, you've got a solar swine confinement. Can you tell us a little about that?
Well, this was a project that we are experimenting with in conjunction with Iowa State University, and we're testing out the possibilities and feasibilities of adding solar heat to our buildings to supplement the existing heating systems that are in there now. And they're presently monitoring the system now to see how it's performing.
Large farming operations sort of have a negative image surrounding them. People seem to feel that you might be out usurping land. Do you classify yourself in that category?
One of the things we hear in the press a great deal is that the big corporations coming in and taking over the farming, and it's kind of a misnomer because many of the corporations that are farming now are just like us. We're just normal family farmers, but our business structure is a corporation.
How satisfied are each of you with the way you're living? What are the advantages and the disadvantages?
It is an area of concern because when you have 4 families working together, you have each person within each of those 4 families has needs, and we think one of the advantages of farming is to try to stress the family, you know, the importance of the family. And it's difficult at times to meet everybody's needs, but it is an area of concern, and we try to keep that in mind.
Well, you asked how satisfied we are with the situation, and I'm happy with the situation that has come about with the 4 of us working together, and the 4 families working together.
In general, what do you see as the future of farming?
Bullish on farming. Well, we've set our life on it, and we think there's a future for it. There's times like right now when it seems very dismal. The markets are not good. Underproduction costs. You just have to kind of have faith that things are going to straighten out, and there will be a time when you can sell your things at above production costs.
I think there's only about 3 ways to start farming anymore. One is through Daddy, and the other one's through Daddy-in-law, and the other one's through your own initiative. And if you cross off the first 2, the other initiative, you can't do it through a hired hand anymore because that doesn't pay good enough. You got to get a good outside job that pays pretty good. It's going to take an awful good wife.
Whether you're a part-time, mid-sized, or corporate farmer, or a consumer who reaps all the rewards, the farm game is a vitally important one that we'll all lose if our farmers don't win. This is Verda Williams for the Extension Service of Iowa and Life Force.
Who fights destructive fires like this in Iowa? It's 25,000